Hi everyone! Welcome back to another episode of Starting Out, a podcast where we share our stories of starting out in this great big world. We talk about our highlights, trials and tribulations, and lessons we've learned along the way. So, as you are starting your journey, we hope you can learn from us. So, Cor, what's the topic for today?
So our topic for today is actually Chinese New Year's, because as we're recording, it's literally Chinese New Year's. It's Tuesday, February the 1st, and it basically signifies the beginning of the new year of the Chinese calendar. So normally this festival is celebrated for 15 days and it involves multiple factors like food, different traditions, but ultimately what it does is we do these things to help increase prosperity, wealth, and good fortune for the year ahead. So in this episode, we're going to talk more about the significance of Chinese New Year's for us, the food that we eat throughout the festival, and ultimately what kind of traditions we would like to pass on to future generations. So Neeqs, to begin, I want to ask you, what are some traditions or superstitions that you or your family do prior and even on Chinese New Year's?
So, Chinese New Year was a really big celebration within our family. I feel like there was so much preparation to make sure that you and your family had the best year ever. So, there was a lot of cleaning. My mom always made me wear red.
Yeah.
And there's also a huge aspect of like getting with your family and making sure. So essentially when you get your red pocket or you get your lucky money for Chinese New Year, you are supposed to say like well wishes to the person that's giving you the money. So in our family, all the cousins would rhyme off all their sayings like, okay, this aunt loves money, beauty, blah, blah. And you try to get all your four word sayings down pat. And it was like, who can say it with like the most perfect accent?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of prepping in that sense. And then Food is such a huge part of Chinese New Year. And again, it's the longevity noodles, it's the lotus, it's the dumplings that look like gold nuggets, like everything that you can technically eat to make sure that you are basically manifesting for a better and the best year ever we were doing. I also think that my mom was very superstitious. She's like not, but then when it's like Chinese New Year, it's like, oh my God, don't wear black. You're not allowed to say these words. Like, oh my God, that's bad luck. Just like bad luck is everywhere, and make sure you get rid of all of that bad juju. So that was our family. How about you, Karina?
I totally agree with preparing, and it's almost like a rehearsal before you walk through the door of those four sayings. You're like, okay, number one, number two, number three. And I just remember before, even like when I was growing up and we went to like Chinese New Year celebrations at like our family house or like our friend's house, I remember just asking my mom and my dad, like, what do I say again? Like, what are the sayings? Just to like make sure I double down on the correct pronunciation. And I totally agree with you. Like when I grew up, a lot of the traditions were very similar to yours as well. So what you couldn't do was like you couldn't sweep on the day of Chinese New Year's because it's supposed to like signify you sweeping away bad luck. And to your point, my parents were never that superstitious, but somehow it always got amplified for almost every family on this festival, like on these couple of days, which totally fair because I mean like we need all the luck we can get, right, for the year ahead.
No one's playing around.
Yeah. But for me, I think one of the things that stood out for me specifically was making dumplings together as a family. So it was almost like a little factory line where someone would make the dough and then someone would cut it and roll it into circles. And then someone would be making the fillings. And then all the kids would start kind of like gather around the table and make those pleats on the dumplings. Because apparently the more pleats you make, like the better or like the more luck you'll have. So I was never good at dumpling making, but maybe in the future, the more I do it, the better I will be.
Oh, yes. Those long assembly lines. And I have never heard the pleat Complete superstitions. That's another thing. You never know how many superstitions are out there until you meet another family, and then you realize you're like, oh my god, there's like 15 more that like I did not know of. So yeah. And then speaking of superstitions and all that stuff, zodiac signs are a huge part of Chinese New Year. So this year is the year of the tiger, and the characteristics of this tiger is kind, adventurous, enthusiastic, but with good, there's also some bad. It's sometimes associated with aggressiveness, short-tempered, and even anxiousness. We love an anxious queen.
Even tigers get anxious.
Even tigers get anxious. So, Karina, based on the year of the tiger and your own zodiac sign, we have the same. Does it accurately reflect who you are? And do you have any thoughts about zodiac signs?
This honestly reminds me of horoscopes.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Like, I'm a Leo. Oh, you're a Capricorn? Sorry, we're not compatible.
Sorry. We can't be friends.
Yeah. But we are both born in the same year, so we're both the year of the ox. We're cows. And it basically signifies diligence and persistence. So in theory, it means that they're really determined, but they can be stubborn at the same time. In theory, I think this is actually pretty true for me, because a lot of the times I feel like I try to keep an open mind, but sometimes I feel myself like pushing myself towards like one train of thought or like one opinion. Obviously, like being on Starting Out Pod, we've preached to have like an open mind and be adaptable, which I've done, but I do think like this kind of pertains to me in different facets of my life still. How about you, Anika?
I feel like horoscopes and star signs and zodiac signs is a way to like categorize people to some degree. I personally thought being the year of the ox was pretty cool growing up. I feel like it was kind of middle of the road. It wasn't too controversial of a zodiac sign to be a part of. Also being a Pisces as well, I feel like it's not like no one really says anything about it, and I was like, perfect, I'm not a Virgo or whatever, which makes no absolute sense to me, at least. However, obviously there's good and bad sides to being the year of the ox, and that being like, okay, oxes are known for being diligent, dependable. They have strength and determination, and I feel like both of us have these characteristics. And then on the negative side, it's like the year of the ox, like they're very opinionated and they're very stubborn and they're hard to challenge. I personally feel like we're not that opinionated or strong-willed to the point where no one can bend or break our views. If anything, we always advocate for change, like you said. So with these things, I always take it with like a grain of salt, and I take the good of being like, okay, if it's the year of the tiger, yeah, let's go be kind, adventurous, and enthusiastic, right? Let's go get what we want in life. Yeah, I really like my zodiac sign.
Wow.
Conclusion. I really like it. Okay, so we have our traditions that we just talked about. And I feel like as a CBC, we love an acronym, a Canadian-born Chinese, we had the luxury of experiencing Chinese New Year through our parents' eyes. So they brought their set of traditions, I guess from like, let's say from the 60s to the 80s Chinese, and we get to really experience it through their eyes. And my question to you, Karina, is moving forward, how are you going to change any of them? And how are you going to even modernize some of these traditions for yourself, for your partner, and for your kids, if you have one day or several?
That's a really good question, because I think about that a lot in terms of which parts of my culture my child or children to have, right? And for me, I think in terms of things that I would want to keep, in terms of traditions that my parents have taught me and that my parents even grew up having, in terms of thinking about food, there are still certain dishes that I want to continue eating on the specific day. So for example, a lot of people eat those longevity noodles to signify having a long life. And then also a lot of people have fish. I don't know what fish signifies.
There's a reason why we have to eat fish.
Right? Yeah. Fish and then lotus roots. We also have like those glutinous rice balls. So in Chinese, like in Mandarin, we call them tangyuan. And it's basically like glutinous rice balls with like a sesame filling or like a red bean paste filling as like a dessert. So those are the things that I want to continue eating because I thought they were just really fun to do. And it really makes Chinese New Year's, in my opinion, feel like Chinese New Year's because we have all of these assortment of dishes. In terms of other traditions that I want to continue is more so giving and receiving the red pockets. So like you said, I want my children to kind of like experience what I experienced with like asking me like, oh mom, what are the sayings that I'm supposed to do when like Ayi gives me a red pocket? And then also continuing traditions like wearing red and everything. So all of these like I do want to continue because personally I think they're like the pillars of what I believe like Chinese New Year stands for. But also maybe moving forward, I would love to see how when my children go to school, whether it's like middle school, elementary school, or even high school, to see what kind of celebrations will the teachers put on for the celebration of Chinese New Year's. Because when I was growing up, in like all three of these, so like in my middle school, elementary, and high school, we actually had like concerts that were for Chinese New Year's. So I just thought that was like a really inclusive way of celebrating Chinese New Year's. Although you may not like identify with our culture, Chinese people are so open to celebrating and to like talking about what this celebration means to us.
Yeah, I feel like you bring up a really great point of extending your traditions beyond your own home. Being a mixed race, I feel like it's always such a interesting landscape for me to navigate when keeping heritage and traditions alive and well. And actually seeing it now through being in school and also at work, I sometimes feel like I get left out of the conversation because ethnically I don't look Chinese. So my wish is that by always talking about it in a great light and having the foods and having the sayings and all that keeps those traditions alive so that if I do have children, they get to also experience the joys of Chinese New Year. So that when they do go into school and they get to also like teach other kids about their culture and all the joys that they get from Chinese New Year. And I feel like if they are able to share, I would hope that other kids in their own cultures will also extend their cultures and their celebrations with my children. And there is like a very underlying everything is like it's such a gift to experience the joys of others. So I feel like that's the bigger takeaway. Like I might not get all of the traditions right. I might accidentally wear the wrong color on the certain day, but I hope that like those are not barriers to experiencing the joys of Chinese New Year or any other culture for that matter. If anything, it's a little gateway to that part of them.
Yeah. Especially growing up, I grew up in like a very diverse in terms of race, in terms of culture, especially when I went to elementary school. So I was fortunate enough to have a school that was like really open to celebrating all types of festivals and like holidays. So for example, like Diwali, like even Korean Independence Day. I remember my elementary school had something for that as well. Which obviously back then we were like, oh, like we know nothing about it because there was only a certain population of my school that was Korean. But the fact that I was fortunate enough to have classmates that were like so open and so willing to learn what that festival was about, whether it's like trying the food that their parents brought in for them to share with the class. I remember one of my classmates read a poem to us in Korean. Although we had no idea what it means, we were like all really touched and like we all found it like so interesting. Someone would open up such a like intimate part of their life to share with us.
That is so cute. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's amazing. I also feel like being able to experience a different side of someone, especially at school or at work, you get to build a a deeper relationship and a deeper understanding of where these people come from and what makes them tick and what makes them happy. So that's really awesome that you were able to experience that. And I feel like as our society is getting more global by the day, it's an awesome, awesome opportunity to experience the joys of others.
For sure. And we are so inviting of bringing you into our culture. If you might not identify as Chinese, or if you might not have celebrated Chinese New Year's before, I would love to learn more about it. There's so many resources online that you can read about. Like if you're interested in what your zodiac sign means, like your zodiac horoscope, take a look online as well and let us know, because we'd love to hear. And you could always reach out to someone who's celebrating it and ask them, hey, like, I would love to learn more about it, because I'm sure they would love to have the conversation with you to tell you what it actually means to them.
Yes. And if you are so lucky to have this opportunity, if you get invited to a Chinese New Year dinner, props to you. That is an experience that I feel like is one of a kind.
Yeah.
So if you do have the opportunity, please say yes, because you'll get to eat a lot of food.
And you'll get money.
But I was going to say, and you might just get a little bit of moolah while you're at it. So with that being said,
we wish you a happy Chinese/Lunar New Year, and we wish you prosperity, wealth, happiness, and love. See you on the next one. Bye.
Bye. You have just been listening to the Starting Out podcast. If you liked today's episode, please make sure to rate and like the show. Also, leave us a review. It helps us a lot. To never miss an episode, please subscribe and turn on notifications. We love to hear from you. So if you want to chat with us, tweet us at StartingOutPod. Links are in the description. As always, we are so excited for you to start out on your journey, all while listening to ours. See you in the next one.